What's good, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn? We are here to talk about the first ever Black Sands official writing competition where we're going to get actual writers in the Black Sands universe. Do you know how crazy of a moment this is? I mean, think about it. People are about to actually start writing Black Sand stories. And I'm not talking about stories in our publishing house, like writing about a different nation. I'm talking about actual Black Sands. And they're going to be able to tell their own stories without my input. I'm just going to be there to go and simply guide the overall theme of the writing. But for the most part, the creators, you are going to actually be making all this content. And I couldn't be more excited, especially since this is going to open up our company to novels, right? We've never done novels before, but well, actually, I take that back. We did do some novels way back in the day when we did Sons in the Bureau, which was successful. So I know that when we do this new series, that we're going to have a lot of success. And more importantly, we're going to have a lot of fun. So first, before anything even begins, go and hit that like button. Share this with your friends. Go ahead and share this. And tell me where you're from. What states are checking in today? Where you at, baby? Where you at? Let me know in the comment section. Also, mic check. Let me know what is going on here. Can you hear me clearly? Right? Can you hear me clearly? Because I always want to do that mic check before I go too hard in, and then people be like, "What's he saying?" Oh man. So I see we got some Pennsylvania people, New York, Alabama. What's up? Hey, by the way, most likely we're gonna do an investor uh, convention. So we're doing a convention with our past investors in February. So in February, we're gonna have a convention over in Harlem, right? We're probably gonna be at the Schomburg, and it's gonna be big. It's gonna be pretty big, you know. So those investors who invested us in the past, yeah, y'all gonna be able to come out, hang out with us, do some panels, talk to the other creators in the company. It's gonna be pretty dope. Oh, we got people from the UK over here. What's up, man? Long way from home. Long way from home. All right, so let's see here. Let's go here. We got DeAndre Mosley. What's up, Mosley? Appreciate you. All right, so we got a couple of people from New York too, man. We got like freaking like 10 people checked in from New York. That's pretty dope. All right, check it out. So let's start this up by I'm gonna talk to you about the lore, okay? This is the content that you're gonna need. I'm gonna give you all access to this, right? First, I gotta convert it to World Anvil, but this is basically all the content you need to compete, to actually apply to write in the competition. And once you get this information, right, on I think Friday, we're going to release this information. You'll have a month to put your submissions in, right? You have a month to put your submissions in. And then after that, we're going to curate all that content. And then once we curate all that content, we're going to pick some finalists. And the finalists are going to write a much longer piece, right, to see who is the best person for the job. All right. So a couple of caveats that we're gonna have is what angle are you gonna take with this character? It's gonna be one of the most important things that you're gonna have to do because we want interesting stories, right? So sometimes, it really depends on what kind of angle you're gonna use on how they're going to develop their character, right? And I think it's gonna be pretty dope. So without further ado, let's start it up. What's the word count? I'm gonna set very specific rules on the font size, right? The font size and so don't worry about the word count so much as how many pages, right? I'm gonna give you an example. I'm gonna be like, here's an example of what you need to submit. The first application is not nearly like writing a big story. All right, you're writing like 3 pages, like a very short submission, right? 3 pages. Because remember, I gotta read hundreds of these, right? I gotta read hundreds of applications. So it's going to be like 3 pages. And the first page is not even going to be the story. It's going to be like how you're going to break down your story. What are you going to invest your time in, right? What do you find interesting about the character and where you plan on going with it? That's that, that logic, right? That way we can understand who's like really has a good mind for it versus who doesn't, right? So we're going to be doing that. So don't worry about a word count for now, right? As far as the final product, like if you actually win, most likely it's going to be 30 pages, right? And 30 pages is like 10,000 words. So 30 pages is like 10,000 words, and that's every single submission. So every submission you do is going to be about 10,000 words, 30 pages, and you're going to submit a lot of those, right? Because we're going to be writing this story continuously, kind of like Game of Thrones. There's going to be a lot of different characters with their own storylines, right? Going forward, right? So that's going to be pretty cool. Let's see now. Let's go with let's show what we're talking about so far. So here we go. So the first thing is I'm gonna tell you about the premise of the story, right? So this era, and we're probably gonna make a cooler name, but for now we're calling it the Scroll of the Five Warlords, right? And the idea is this, right? Before the first god killer Ra, there was a bloody era where humanity was ruled by ancient gods. This is a portal to that time in which 5 warlords battle for control of Kush. This is a bloody and brutal time of conflict and strife. This scroll will provide lore masters the tools and the powers to script into life the tales of this lost era. You must choose one of 5 characters: Anthos, Sakati, Fenyang, Masaka, and Minkab, and explore these characters' stories. Their journey is in your hands. Only the most epic of tales will survive the sands wearing time. The information found here is meant to provide writers with guidance and inspiration and a rule set to help you tell fantastic stories of honor, betrayal, love, and war in ancient Kemet. This is your opportunity to be a part of the expanding Black Sands universe, one page at a time. Below, you will find briefings on the 5 warlords you will choose from to center your stories around. And the world is the section that will flush out information about the lands of Kush, Kerma, and Kemet to set the stage for the drama and conflict you inject. Lastly, the armory shares the weapons of the time and whose hands are best to put them in. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing. That's some of the information you're going to find here as well. Now, before I go into every specific section of this thing, does anyone have any questions so far? I see a question here. It says, just one winner. How many people are going to be selected on board? 5. 5 different people. 5 different people are going to win characters. All right. It's also important that you guys understand you can't submit for everyone. You can only submit for 2 characters. So pick your 2 favorite characters that you feel you can write the story for, right? And that's going to be your characters that you can submit for. If I see like 5 submissions from one person or multiple submissions, they're just all going to be rejected. All right, because I got to read a lot of freaking applications. So pick your top 2. Where do you go for information? Don't worry about that. We're gonna put it on World Anvil by the end of the week, right? So on the end of the week, I'm gonna have World Anvil page that's completely public access. So everybody will be able to go there and get the information, and you can just look around and see whatever you like. Okay. Are we allowed to change the time era? Absolutely not. Nope. Kids, I am in a meeting. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, no changing of the timeline at all. You have no creative freedom when it comes to the timeline, when it comes to the locations, and when it comes to powers, all right? Cuz nobody has powers. These are all regular humans. All right? All of them are regular humans. So the fantasy level should be at a bare minimum until we decide to throw it in there. So I'll throw in some events in there that'll be like, yo, there's a ancient invasion going on in the desert, right? And Mankab just got got dragged into it, and then I'll be like, Menkab, you gotta write this section with this particular battle about going on. How you gonna deal with the ancients, right? Is it gonna make your men panic? Is it gonna be something that has been unseen before? Or are you people veterans? How you gonna deal with that situation? That's how that's gonna work. Does grammar and punctuation count? Yes, please try to be legible. All right. I'm not too concerned about absolute like oh man, this person's a scholar. I'm not gonna care about that. But if you're bad at writing, you're bad at writing. And I'm not gonna go and reinvent the wheel to try and use you. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to at least give it to an editor, and they should be able to quickly go through it and fix any problems that might occur. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. So let's say all 5 characters in one book. It's all one book series. So yes, they're all interconnected, and some people won't be writing at the same time as others. Like there might be a part where we're going to focus on maybe 2 of the writers until they've completely finished their section and their arc, and then we're going to have all the other people read those 2 sections and then begin writing their parts, right? Because they got to have that information, that critical information, to be able to continue the story. So that's how it's going to be. It's going to be a lot of different writers writing sometimes at the same time, sometimes staggered, and that's how it's going to work. All right, time to go back into this. Someone was asking how our submissions be secure and safe. Well, one thing is this, right? Nobody cares. It's my IP. So don't submit if you think your stuff is going to be stolen. All right, it's my IP. So I don't care what you write. I already wrote everything that possibly exists in my world. So, like I said, don't submit. That's my biggest thing. If you are scared that someone's going to steal your idea, even though they really will, like other people will win the job and have to write their own stories, and you think that somehow your great idea will be stolen, don't submit. All right. This is a Black Sands official lore writing competition. So everything's in the Black Sands universe already. Nothing you can make is something that isn't already in the Black Sands universe. There's rules, right? And while everybody that submits will understand that they are waiving their rights, right? Because I'm not getting sued for no stupid mess. If somebody thinks that somebody stole their idea, the reality is don't submit, right? You just live your life, right? Make your own series. This is Writers for Black Sands, and we're the biggest IP out there right now. So, that's how people do it. And I understand that's not from you. That's from someone else. And I'm just giving that energy to everybody who plans on writing, being in this competition. If you're afraid that your ideas will be stolen, don't submit. Don't join the Patreon. Don't do any of that stuff because we don't need it. All right, let's go. Let's continue to move forward with this. And I believe so. Would any of the warlords be fighting each other? Absolutely. That's why sometimes many writers won't be writing at the same time, right? Sometimes writers will have to wait for other writers to finish their stuff if they're interacting. So let's say there's a conflict that's about to happen. And I'm saying this conflict will happen no matter what after your role. So lead up to get to this point and then stop writing. And then I'm gonna get the other person and they're gonna write the next part of that, reacting to how that person reacted in the first part, right? So section A happens, right? Section A happens, boom, bam, bam. And then section B is written by the person who's reacting to that. And there's no problem having your character lose, all right? You don't have to win. Your characters don't have to win. What I care more about is great storytelling, all right? So if your character dies off in glory, in a moment where it was clearly that moment, right? And it just happens, guess what? I'm not mad. I'll just have you write something else eventually, right? Because at the end of the day, you completed a task. You made a story that was worthy. There is obviously not going to be 5 warlords at the end of this story. Many people will die or be kicked out of Kush or whatever, right? So clearly it said not everybody's gonna make it, right? And when they go, they go. That's gonna be dope. All right, let's keep going forward. Let's go to our next section. So let's go to the world, right? Oh, and by the way, this picture right here, this is Anthos. So if you don't know, this is Anthos right here. He's one of my favorite characters in Black Sands. Regular human dude, right? But that's when he's older too. So in the story, he's only like 25. In the story, he's 25, but here he's like freaking like 50. He's old as heck at this point. So let's see. The Black Sands universe draws inspiration from real world history and events, but it's its own standalone universe. Be wise to remember the use of words written here closely to guide your inking of the world. State of the kingdom. It is an era of economic stagnation and extreme poverty. The warlords rule with brutal force, providing for the people only when they see fit. Overpopulation endures in some parts of the nation and is scarce in others. The rich Black Sands around the Nile make for fertile soil, and those who control the production of food have powerful resources that gold pales in comparison to. This power quells rebellions and keeps the people in check. Locations. So most of the story is going to be taking place in Kush. Um, the city of Meroe is the capital of the king of Kush. Actually, we're going to change that to Kerma. It should be Kerma. So we're going to change that over to Kerma. I think this is just typo. But the city of Kerma is the capital uh, uh, of the kingdom of Kush. The land is fertile with cattle and crops, and the production of cotton, millet, sorghum, makes Kush a wealthy culture. The Kush have iron made weapons and are known to make trade with other cultures like the Greeks. Kemet is the name of the kingdom that we now refer to as Egypt. Kemet, or black soil, is named after the fertile black sands soil of the Nile River. Kemet is connected to other parts of the world. Kerma. So Kerma is close to the Nile. Most people live in small villages, growing crops. Many of other people go herders and cattle herders. There's some mining and metalworking, but all gold, copper, and ivory resources are controlled by the warlords. Religion. So this is actually pretty important. Uh, in the story of Black Sands, especially in the early eras, there's not much organized religion. So Sorkati's cult, and Sorkati's one of our characters that you're going to be able to write for. Sorkati's cult worships the ancients and continues to grow in popularity among the people due to the cult's access to food and fresh water. Most warlords do not interfere with them since they trade openly with whoever accepts their teachings. But the Magi of the desert absolutely despise them and feel there is a deeper plot they are planning. All right, so there's a big beef that's going to break down eventually between Sorkati's cult in Kush and the Magi, who absolutely hate all ancients. So be prepared for that. The weaponry of war, right? Within these halls lies your arsenal to tell stories of conflict, bloodshed, and triumph. Spears and bows will be the most common tools for, common soldiers, but those with special training and status, like warlords and generals, may use curved blades like Kopesh. Common folk will most likely use slings, preferring to stay as far away from deadly melee as possible. And then here's a quote from an anonymous chieftain. The warlord Masika trains her bowmen to use their bows at close range. I have seen this firsthand when we were ambushed at an oasis near Meroe. The fire, an initial volley of arrows that blankets the sky in shadow and rain down on the enemy. As their opponents shield themselves from the volley, the regiment uses this moment to close the distance with cheetah-like speed. There, they put one arrow after another into the heart of their opponents from inches away, while weaving past the enemy's swings of their blades. All right, so that's one of the main characters, Masika, and she has legendary bowmen under her command. So let's see. Melee weapons, the Kopesh, right? This is like the noble blade. So the razor bronze or iron short sword has an inside curve of the blade that could be used to trap an opponent's arms and forcibly pull a shield away. Only warriors of high status or royalty wield such a weapon. The Kopis, while still considered a sword, this heavy curved blade is more of a knife. For dual wielders, it might go hand in hand with a khopesh. The concave part of the blade toward the hilt makes the weapon able to be used in an axe-like way while retaining a long blade. The Zephos, a standard short sword, lighter but not as effective as the Khopesh. This is something that maybe a decent commoner would have, like somebody who has some skill in war. They might be given like a Zephos. Um, the spear, everybody's gonna get a spear. This is very common, a common weapon among infantry in the story. So just pay attention to that. Daggers aren't used that much. Most of the time, it's not even really a weapon. So think of that as something that a commoner would use, and not during war, but during like regular strife. Range weapons, short and long bows. So short bow is used for shorter distances and is lighter and easier to wield, while a long bow is heavier and more unwieldy, but deadly accurate. With a double curved design, it is able to hit a target 250 meters and is preferred for long range bow regiments. Uh, Slingshots, an extremely common but mostly ineffective weapon of peasants and common folk. Typically, the sling is crafter of animal skins using fine rocks and projectiles, with better for hunting than combat. An effective marksman can be deadly with one. And then armories. So the standard armor of the time are helmets, breastplates, and shields. The difference in these items lies in the styling and the materials based on the culture. You'll be pressed to find a warrior clad from head to toe in plate armor. Warriors are armored light for swift movement and momentum. Each melee and range strike is looking to capitalize on areas of exposed flesh. And then we'll go into, let's see. Now I'm gonna take a break from talking about these people, and I'm gonna go back to the comment section so I can see you guys, see if any new questions have arise, and then we're gonna go into the five main characters, right? The five main characters of Black Sands. Let's see. So, question was, will you be recording this live? Yes, this live will go. This live will basically go on our YouTube channel permanently, so anybody will have access to it after we're done. So that's not a problem. Someone said, "Is this a sequel?" No, it's a prequel. It's a prequel. So, just so that you know, as far as time period is concerned, this happened before Apetamok came to Kush. As we know, Apetamok conquered Kush, right? So Apetamok literally conquered the entire country of Kush. So, but before that happened, there were five warlords who were vying for power in that area. So this is the story before Apetamok, right? That's why it's so cool, right? Because they ain't no super powered people. They ain't no people with all these abilities and stuff. These are regular dudes. These are regular dudes with vast armies. Let's see. Are we creating, writing the backstories of the two characters of our choice? No, I'm going to give you the backstories. So I'm going to give you the backstories literally in a couple of minutes. I'm going to tell you all the information about every single character so you have a good base as to who the character is, what their current situation is, and what their motivations for the future are, right? And then your job is to create a new story to continue their life, right? This is a heavy time. They're going to tell you the exact situation they're in and everything. It's going to be pretty cool. What is the script format? The first one's just going to be Word documents. All right. So it's not going to be any script formats at the beginning. It's just going to be Word documents. And this is going to be Word documents throughout. So I don't want anybody trying to like, you know, do all this. This is not a comic. I want to be clear on this. This is not a comic. These are novels or novellas, right? Short little novels. So because it's short little novels, don't worry so much about like those kind of things like, oh man, should it be in script format? Should I talk about where, should I give description of panels? That's not, nothing's going to be important at all other than writing a pretty good story. All right. So that's the focus of this competition. Thank you, Kareem. Let's see. And by the way, if you haven't joined our Patreon yet, you need to be a patron member in order to apply, because we will have confirmation system. We will have a confirmation system um, to verify that people are patrons, right? Because I'm gonna have too many applications. I'm gonna have way too many applications. I want to weed that down as much as possible, right? Let's see here. Let's go into the characters, because that's one of the questions, right? What is the backstories? So, Anphos. We're gonna start with Anphos. Now, every character doesn't have art, right? So a lot of these characters don't have art. But with that being said, Anphos is like a character that's still in Black Sands like today, right? So he's still like a major character, and actually the leader of the entire military in Kemet, right? So he's the literal commander of the entire military in Kemet, Anphos, right? But this is a story about him when he was younger. So so let's go ahead and let's read this bio. So Anphos was the son of a great warlord and ruler of elite swordsmen located in Moreau. And if you don't know where Moreau is, here it is. So if you're looking at the story, right, most of our story in Black Sands is here, right? This is where most of our story is, in the Black Sands. However, in this particular part of the story, we are over here, this area, Kush. And Moreau is right down here at the bottom, right? So that's like or what I would say, the north, right? Because to them, they saw everything as up here, the south, and everything up here, the north, right? Because that's just the way the river flowed. The river flows uphill instead of downhill, right? So Moreau is the city that basically is held by Anphos. And Anphos, he's a pretty good administrator. He's actually like one of the few warlords who knows how to, for the most part, run a stable society, right? But he has a major issue in the fact that the religious faction led by Sorkati is also in his city. So his soldiers are elite swordsmen, few in number, and a bunch of volunteers from the refugees who use short spears and shields. He is unmarried and thinks more of the legacy of his clan. As such, he is not ambitious, which can be a big problem when Sorkati presses him for control of Moreau. So he's in a real big problem here, because one thing he cares more about is tradition, right? And values that his father put into him. You know, but you know, because he lacks ambition, because he doesn't want to rule like all of Kush, right? It kind of leaves him open to people taking advantage of him, right? So that's one of the things that's going to be a big thing that's going to be bothering him, especially with Sorkati, which is a religious cult leader, right? So he's kind of manipulative, right? So we're going to see what happens with that. As far as his alignment, he's lawful good, all right? So all my D&D fans out there, right? He's lawful good. Goals, he wants to establish a lasting legacy of his clan, right? His main attributes focus on honor and administration. So this is one of the more honorable characters in this storyline. Focus on honor and administration. His possible weakness is lack of ambition. So I want you as a writer to be able to throw moments in there where he should take advantage, right? But his focus on honor, right? His focus and honor and his lack of ambition will make him take make him take a less advantageous choice, which could hurt him in the future. You understand? That's going to be very important. You guys need to go and throw moments in there like that, where he clearly should have taken advantage and he didn't, because either honor or a lack of ambition, you know, tells him not to. And if you want a really good example of a character who's similar to this, go look at the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, right? Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and look at the story of Liu Bei. Liu Bei is basically like Anphos in certain way. Like, he's a great leader in history, right? Super honorable, wielded some of the biggest and strongest militaries of all time, but he kept using he let honor and stuff and a lack of ambition. He used honor a lot to hamper himself. He had moments where he could have easily won and chose not to, or could have easily gained a massive amount of land and chose not to because it would not be honorable. So he was like, I can't do that. And everybody around him was like, bruh, we have to do this. And he's like, no, I would rather commit suicide than dishonor our house. So this is something that you need to be thinking about when you're writing for Anfos. His preferred military unit is elite swordsmen. All right. So he has a lot of veteran soldiers who are swordsmen. And then possible narrative questions to answer, right? How does taking in refugees, he's one of the few warlords who will take in refugees. So how does taking in refugees affect Anfos' rule for better or for worse? What is Anfos prepared to do about the growing religious faction led by Sorkati? Will Anfos marry? So if you don't know, he's also in a romantic situation with Masika. So Masika and Anfos know each other very well, right? But it's not official, right? So nobody really knows about them like that, right? And how does that affect him? How does that make how does he make decisions? Will he drag himself into situations that he's not involved in because she's in trouble, or vice versa? Will she do that for him? Who knows? That's your job to write. Now, I'm gonna do Sorkati as well before I go back into the comment section, because Anfos and Sorkati are literally on opposite sides of a big conflict. So Sorkati is the cult leader who secretly harbors alliances with the ancients of the Greek North. He converts refugees to his cause due to abundance of food the city of Moreau produces. Anfos tolerates him because he's pretty evenly handed trader of goods, choosing no sides. While every other faction has more warriors, no one compares in followers to Sorkati, and he knows it. His message of the peace between the gods of the desert and humanity is spreading like wildfire. He has to be careful, though, because he can end up infuriating a religious fanatic cult known as the Magi, who absolutely despise the ancients and any sympathizers. His long-term goal is to establish a universal religion in Kush and strip all the warlords of their power, but he cannot let them know of this. So his alignment is lawful evil, right? He's lawful evil. So if you don't know what lawful evil is, right, don't think of them as like somebody who's like, oh man, they're going to kill everyone and all that stuff. That's not what lawful evil is. Lawful evil is like Mitch McConnell. All right. So the lawful evil is basically like a politician who will use the rules to get their way, to take advantage of a situation, right? Typically for their own goals, right? They want to get their own goals done, but they will use a system. They won't go outside the system. They won't break the system in order to get what they want, right? So when you're using Sorkati, right, there are situations where just because you have greedy intent and just because you have an agenda, if something's simply not in the rule book that you created for your system, right, your religion, right, then you won't do it, even if it's advantageous to you, because you're lawful evil. You have a code. There's a code that you follow. If you can bend the code, that's fine, but you cannot break the code. That is what lawful evil is. You work in the system to get your way, right? Whereas a lawful good person will work in the system even if it doesn't isn't an advantage to them at all. Like like they will lose a lot of stuff themselves, but they care more about the system. Whereas a lawful evil person will do anything they can to not suffer directly while working in the system. All right. So goals: he wants to establish one religion in Kush, providing himself the power. Main attributes: he's highly charismatic and deceptive. His possible weakness is his clear conflict that's coming with the cult of the Magi. Preferred military units is just followers, man, cult followers, right? Numbers is what makes him so powerful. Possible narrative questions to answer: when and how is Sorkati's secret dealings with the Greeks exposed? So when does he get exposed? Will it be early? Will it be late in the story? Who knows, right? Will Amphos stop the growing of the cult before Sokati has too much hold over the people's minds? So obviously, there's a problem here, right? How much of Sokati cult will actually like start taking over sections of Moreau, right? Right now, they're just a cult, right? But what if they start taking over administrative duties? What if they start controlling certain regions? This is something that Amphos really needs to keep an eye on. And will the Magi face off with the Sorkati and his cult? Right? Will that happen? I'm going to throw in situations where I'll force it. Right? But for the most part, you need to be thinking about that when you're writing. Now I'm gonna go back to the crowd and let me look at some of your comments. Somebody talking about they saying that basically homeboy is Peter Baelish. Y'all say he's like a Peter Baelish character, somebody who's working the system. Littlefinger. I can see that. I can see that for real. I could definitely see that. What POV will this be written in? First person, third person, or omniscient? That's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. I always like third person stories. I always like third person stories in general. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with third person perspective, right? But you'll still be able to get into the thoughts and the mind of people, right? So sometimes you'll be able to you know, go into the inner workings of like their thoughts and stuff like that. But for the most part, third person perspective is probably the best way to write this, right? That way people don't get really jarring experiences when they read somebody else's section. Now, ain't no way in hell Donald Trump is lawful evil. That is not a lawful evil dude. He's chaotic evil. All right. So Donald Trump wants what he wants. And he's gonna get it no matter what. He don't care about the rules, the law. He'll just bully people if he can. He doesn't care what he has to do to get what he wants. All right. So that's textbook chaotic evil. Right. I'm gonna get what I want no matter what, no matter the cost. People get hurt, whatever, right? I'm not necessarily trying to hurt people, right? But I'm gonna get what I want. So if people happen to be hurt, that's whatever. I ain't trying to hurt them. I'm just trying to go and get what I want. I'm super selfish and I'm gonna get my cut. That's what chaotic evil is. Right? Now, true evil is something you rarely see, right? But true evil just want to hurt people. That's all they want to do. Like that's the only objective they have is hurting people and destroying things. You're hardly ever going to see true evil, right? You'll usually see lawful evil or chaotic evil, right? You'll never see true evil because true evil is very hard to pull off. It's like monsters, right? They're not people, they're monsters, like if anybody's a true evil and they're a person, most of the time they're psychos. Like they don't even think. Like they're literal psychos. So yeah. Let's see. Let's move on. Next character, Fen Yang. Fen Yang, the conqueror of Kerma. All right. So Fen Yang is probably one of our more complicated stories. He's very complicated. So check it out. He's the conqueror of Kerma. He rules an elite military unit known as the Thousand Spears. The Thousand Spears are extremely important in the Black Sands universe in general. They're like very elite units. But yeah, he rules an elite military unit known as the Thousand Spears. Kerma is easily the most developed city in Kush and has been ruled by different factions over the last century. Fen Yang took control 15 years ago as he led a bloody campaign across the lands, destroying all supply routes to the city and starving out the people. Now he rules, but is blinded by his power. He has dozens of wives and spends most of his days in bliss, but ignores the needs of many people living in the city. His soldiers also feel he is squandering his chance of uniting the nation. Luckily for him, his son Gorai is a capable and honorable chief. The Thousand Spears will not rebel so long as his son is in command. The issue is, How long will Garai do this before he has to make a hard choice of staying loyal to his father or taking power for himself to save his clan? All right. So Fen Yang is chaotic evil. He's a chaotic evil character. He's basically lost his, he's like he's drunk on power and, really start giving away to the excess of life. So he's really lost his will. Um, his goal is to retain power and continue to enjoy the spoils of war, right? Main attributes is brute force and intimidation. So he's a very intimidating character, and he's actually a very strong. He's a great warrior, right? His weakness though is he's slow. People just don't trust him. Like a lot of people have discontent from him. He's one of the biggest discontented people, and his preferred military unit is the Thousand Spears. Thousand Spears are really dope infantry units. So we're gonna go into that much deeper later on. But basically, Thousand Spears are like super elite, like military people who are usually commanded by the true king of Kush, right? So eventually, the Thousand Spears are actually like the main military force for Petamok, right? So think about that in the future, right? Possible narrative questions to answer. Are there rebel factions growing among Feng Yang's people? So, are there rebel factions? How many rebel factions will you create? What are their motivations? Right? That's pretty important. Uh, can Fen Yang can Fen Yang's rule of karma hold long enough for his son to gain command of the Thousand Spears? So, in other words, will it stabilize? Will his rule stabilize? Or whatever. And third one, does Fen Yang ever see the error in his ways, or will he take his faults to the grave? So, will Fen Yang get out of his way? Like, will he actually be able to get out of his own way and become a great conqueror again? Or will he just keep soaking into this, life of bliss, right? Furthermore, and this is very important, how does that affect Garai? Will Garai betray his father? Or in Fen Yang greed, will Fen Yang betray Garai even though Garai ain't do nothing wrong? Right? Just because he thinks that he's trying to take his power, right? Mostly people who are like super greedy like this and who go into this like state of like constant bliss, they will do anything to hold on to their power, and they are very paranoid. So this is something you're going to be thinking of when you're writing the story of Fen Yang, right? Is paranoia going to control him, right? Or is Garai going to make a hard decision? Who knows? Uh, I love this character because I remember this story between Lu Bu and Chancellor Dong, right? Lu Bu and Chancellor Dong is basically exactly what this is. It's a situation where the dude's super powerful, super rich, but it's kind of greedy. He's a greedy dude, right? He really loves the amount of power he's gained and is not very ambitious because he already gained the power. And Lu Bu wants something, but Dong takes it from him, and then there's a conflict between the two, and then eventually Lu Bu betrays Dong. So that was definitely something that was an amazing story. So think about that when you're writing this one, is that kind of interaction between a father and a son, right? In power. Let's see what else. Masika. So Masika is our female character. It's our female war chief. So basically, she is an elite bowman. She has an elite bowman division. Their military style is much based on deception and guile. She's a descendant of a bow style made for melee combat and taught her best warriors the style. As such, they're unusually mobile and aggressive for an archery unit. This group is nomadic by nature, right? So they're nomads, and tend to prefer the oasis around Kush instead of the main cities. That gives her an advantage of not being easily attacked and allows her to make decisions. She is secretly romantically involved with Anfos, but they will not allow this information to go public. Masika has the fewest soldiers of all the warlords, but her soldiers are the most elite. Her goal is to drive off the corrupt warlords who abuse the power, but she has absolutely no intention of ruling herself. So think of her as like an honorable ninja society, right? That's the kind of idea of what they are. They're like they're like kind of like assassins, right? But with an honor code, right? They kind of want to get rid of like the worst of the worst, right? But they don't want to actually rule themselves, right? So she's lawful neutral, right? She's lawful neutral. Uh she wants to use the corrupt warlords to her own end. So she's gonna take advantages wherever she can, right? For the most part, in order to get her stuff done. Her main attributes are stealth and ambush. So she's extremely knowledgeable of the land, and knows how to get things done. Her possible weakness is her secret relationship with Anthos. So her secret relationship with Anthos is complicated because if they know that she's romantically involved with Anthos, they won't hire her. Like she like a lot of her contracts and negotiations will basically fall apart because she'll seem biased, right? She'll seem biased. So they have to keep that secret, right? Because she's a wild card. She's not really a ruler of any of these kingdoms. And as such, people tend to use her strategically, right? In order to gain some kind of advantage somewhere, right? And that's what she likes to do. She likes gaining her power through these contracts. And eventually, she's going to make her strategic attacks in order to take out the people that she really despises. Um, her preferred military unit is elite archers trained in melee combat. So these are people who will shoot you in the face from like 5 feet away, right? And never take out a sword. They literally just shoot you in the face from 5 feet away. And when you attack them, they know how to evade and shoot you in the face from 5 feet away. So these people are really gangster. All right. Possible narrative questions to answer. Which of the warlords in Masika's group no, which of the warlords is Masika's group most at odds with or in favor of at the moment? So what are her standing relationships with the other characters in the story? Right? That's something you need to be thinking about. If Masika topples a warlord but is unable to rule in their stead, who will rise to fill the void? So what if she is successful in taking out one of the warlords, right? What happens to their land? She's not planning on ruling it. So what happens? Does other warlords claim it and become more powerful? What happens when she interrupts the normal state of power, right? Because she is definitely going to be one of those characters who are going to make very critical moments in the story, right? And some people will be taken out, you know. Uh, and then what does Masika stand to lose if her relationship with Anthos comes to light? So that's something you need to be thinking of. Lastly, the last character that we're talking about is Mincab. So Mincab, the fist of Napata, is an extremely odd yet formidable warlord. One of the most established rulers. He has ruled over Napata for 40 years. All right. This man is basically, if you're thinking of like a true king, this is a true king, right? He has ruled over Napata for 40 years. He is a man of tradition and leads an incredible army of cavalry and foot soldiers. The people of his city fear and admire him, for he has very strict rules governing his land. The slightest mistakes can cause permanent injury or death to the offending party. But unlike most warlords, he shows no favoritism. This is why his people tolerate his strict rule. Minqab is considered to be the true king of Kush by the people and historians of the era. But Minqab believes the other warlords will destroy themselves and it's best to wait them out. He focused most of his time training his son to be his successor. His son is only 22, even though Minqab is 54 years old. He had 4 older brothers, but they all died at a very young age. His son is highly ambitious, but respects his father enough not to act on them. Who will be the biggest influence, though, over the other in the coming years of the war? So Minqab's alignment is lawful neutral. His goal is to outlast the demise of the other warlords. He thinks they're going to destroy themselves. His main attributes are order and patience, right? He's a very patient man. Possible weakness, his age and the unknown and unknowing if he can prepare his son to be a true successor. So his problem is Can he get his son up to speed fast enough? Because he is a really old man. Like he don't have much longer to live, right? He's even though he's a great man, he's very old in his age, especially in that time period. People didn't live that long. So when you're 54, you are really pushing the boundaries of life. Preferred military unit is cavalry and foot soldiers. What? So here's some possible narrative questions to answer. What would Mincab do if anything was to happen to his heir? Oh, okay. So what happens to his son? What if his son gets caught in a battle and and there's a ransom or something like that? What the heck will happen when he cares so much about the future of his line, his lineage, right? What decisions will he make in those scenarios, right? Uh, Mincab hopes the other warlords will destroy one another, but how will Mincab respond to war coming to the city sooner than later? So let's say somebody decides to attack, you know, Napata. Will he respond with defense, or will he be forced to be a little bit more outgoing? We never know. How will he react to that? That's your decision to make. And then lastly, McCap cares about for tradition, but in the ruthless era, can his ways of tradition survive? So, in other words, can basically can his code, can his laws really deal with the situation currently happening in in Kush? Right? Will they coincide? What if he has to leave the city or conquers another city? Right? And they're all like savages. What will happen? Will he break down? Will he break them down and bring his iron fisted rules to their society? Will they rebel because they're not used to that kind of heavy handed tactics? You never know. So, write about it. And we are done looking at the 5 major characters of the series. Now, what I want to do is talk to you guys about any questions you have. So, do you guys have any questions about about this writing competition or the characters? Any questions about the characters? Please put the name of the character in your question, so at least I know that you're asking specifically about that character. And like I said, you're going to be able to choose 2 people that you can compete for. Everyone else, it's up to that's something else. All right, here we go. What's the genre of this book? YA. YA. All right. So don't worry about gore, right? Don't worry about sex, right? No sex, no gore, and no language. But deaf, sexual content, right? Not sex, but sexual content, right? Stuff like that. That's fine. YA stuff, right? YA stuff. Um, so this book is a Game of Thrones type format of writing. Sure, sure, not a problem. I think it's fine. What I would tell you to do is here's something that I really want you guys to do. So um, I'm going to send an email out to everybody. So I'm going to send an email out about a series I want you guys to watch. If you're really interested in writing this story, if you're really interested in writing a story that's going to be amazing, I'm gonna have you watch a series. It's called uh Three Kingdoms 2010. It's Chinese. It's freaking amazing. All right. This series will change your life as far as like thinking of how to write characters and how to make characters really lovable and give them a code so they don't fall outside of character, right? Like the characters need to be consistent, right? So a lot of people when they write stories, especially amateur writers, they'll have characters who'll do stuff for no reason. They just randomly decide to do something way out of character. Three Kingdoms is one of the best stories I've ever seen, you know, on television. And it's like 100 episodes. Now, you don't really need to watch 100 episodes, maybe 40 episodes or so. And you're going to get the gist of how to make great stories about individual characters. Because in Three Kingdoms, there's roughly about I would say 5 major characters. I would say about 5 major characters. Really, there's 3 major characters as far as like 3 major storylines throughout the entire series. But there are about 5 at any given time that are very important characters who get a lot of screen time, right? And they get a lot of their personal story told. Go through that. Go through that, especially if you're writing for someone like like let's see, what was it? Fen Yang. If you're writing for Fen Yang, you definitely want to watch where where Chancellor Dong and Lu Bu are going at it. They are arguing. There's a huge power struggle going on between somebody who's basically the emperor, right? And somebody who's his commander and also his adopted son. So there's like a huge power struggle going on between them. And it's beautiful. It goes on for like freaking 10 episodes, right? It's like nothing else happens. The show's about a whole bunch of different storylines. But in that moment, when there's a huge critical moment that's about to happen, it's going to change the story forever. Only those two characters are talked about for like 10 episodes, like straight. And that's how we're going to do it too. When there are moments in Black Sands, where there's a critical moment about to happen between two characters, right? We will stop all writing in the story for all the other characters. They won't write anything until this is settled. These characters will be going at it until there is a finality to it, so that all the other characters can react to what happened in that story, right? And that's gonna be something that's gonna be that's gonna be happening in Black Sands. It's gonna be pretty freaking cool. Can we kill off characters early on? I'll let you know. I'll let you know if that happens. We kind of want characters to, you know, get something done first before they get knocked off, right? So we ain't gonna be killing no characters in the first like 10 chapters, right? Not the main characters anyway. Maybe their sons, maybe their friends, right? But not the main characters. Not that early. Not that early. Now, can they lose everything? Absolutely. Can they lose all their power, right? And struggle? Sure. Why not? Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna put it on World Anvil. So right now it's on Lore Keeper, and Lore Keeper doesn't have that many people. A lot of people can't access it. So I'm gonna be transitioning all that information to World Anvil. That way, everybody can get it. Anybody can get the information on World Anvil. So that's where you're gonna get all your information. Kingdom is pretty dope. Kingdom is pretty dope. Kingdom is amazing, and the reason why Kingdom is amazing because what it even though it's a zombie series, right? It's a zombie series, right? At the end of the day, there's a hell of a lot of politics going on in the story. It's a lot of politics, a lot of storylines, joining up. So I love Kingdom. Kingdom's awesome. Any other questions? Any other questions? And first of all, now that you've heard all 5 characters, which character you feel is going to have a story that resonates with you, and why? Why do you think a character will resonate with you? Go ahead and leave me that information in the comment section. No, nothing in the Haitian Revolution right now. I just don't have anybody who's doing it. Well, I'm talking about Kingdom, the Korean joint. So I'm talking about the Korean Kingdom. There's a lot of series called Kingdom. So I don't know which one you're talking about, but the one I'm talking about is the Korean joint, right? So the Korean Korean joint is a literal zombie series. Let me see. Let me see. And if you haven't watched it before, go watch it. It's on Netflix. Kingdom is freaking dope. Kingdom is dope. Kingdom is one of the best political stories I've ever seen. And it's about zombies, but it's good. It's good. This is a part of the Black Sand series. It's not closely related. It is a part of the Black Sand series. It's a part of it. It's literally like real lore. All right. So so somebody The Dread God said that he Fen Yang, he loves evil characters. So there we go. He's gonna get that one. All right. So Angel Bryant says, Anfos, try to play by the rules and watching everyone pass you by while you struggle with being held back by your own morals. Yeah, that's Liu Bei right there. That's Liu Bei right there. Liu Bei. Liu Bei gave up, so he had so many opportunities, you know? And you know what? You know what's awesome about Liu Bei? Until the emperor himself begged him to raise an army and kill Cao Cao. He said, "Yo, Cao Cao is destroying our line. You have to do something." But up until that point, he kept turning away from every opportunity he ever had of power. He kept turning away from it. Every chance he got for power, he would turn away from it over and over again. And once that happened, you saw a character shift in him. He finally stopped he finally stopped getting in his own way. He was like, I'm not going to stop. He said, now I'm going to listen to my advisors and do what has to be done because the emperor told me to. Right? He said before it was, I won't do that no matter what. It's not honorable. Now it's the emperor said you do whatever you have to do to get it done, right? And it's character changes completely, right? So that's a beautiful part of that story. We got one right here. Colin Hunter talking about Circati. Circati's pretty cool. Huh. So somebody said probably Mikasa because Misaka because I love writing about romance. All right. Well, remember, Anthos is also in that same romance. So, right. So either character is going to have a story in there, like a sub story about the romance between them. I haven't done that yet. So I haven't told you exactly what the submission requirements are yet. So you're going to see that on Friday. And not only are you going to see that on Friday, but you're going to have a month to do it. So you're going to have like a whole month to get your stuff together, right? And do it. Me personally, I'm going to send out an email on Wednesday, right? About a series that you absolutely need to watch. It's freaking, first of all, you're all going to be diehard fans by the time you're done with it. But you got to watch this series, right? It starts off a little cheesy and you're like, oh man, these actors are terrible. But then you realize the actors aren't terrible. It's politics. You have to cry a certain way. You have to laugh a certain way when you're in a political stage in their time period. Otherwise, you're gonna get your head fucking chopped off, right? So they were over exaggerated on purpose. And once you get used to like that idea that sometimes people are acting on purpose to like seem very committed, right? That they're like that you'll start really enjoying like how the story's told. Like this is some straight up shady stuff going on here, and you'll really understand like the concept of the characters that we're talking about in Black Sands, right? Because this is a political story. This is not a story where it's like a superhero fights an ancient god, right? That's not what this section is. This section is straight up war between multiple warlords, right? Very different warlords. Fen Yang and Masika are cool. They are cool characters. They're really cool characters. I think Fen Yang is going to have the most interesting story. Of all the characters, I think Fen Yang is going to easily have the most interesting story because his situation is crazy. Like his situation is crazy as hell. He's tyrannical, right? But he's short-sighted because he's really like dove deep into the idea of the bliss of being in charge of owning so much, right? But his son is like, yo, whatever happened to our conquest for all of Kerma? What's going on here? And all the militaries like, yo, is our ruler even like with us anymore? Or is he, what's wrong with this guy? So there's a lot of discontent growing, and how does he quell that? How does he keep everybody in line? How does he like work with his son in any way, shape, or form? There's so many questions involved in Fen Yang's story. I think that's going to be like the most interesting character out there for a while. Let's see. Characters losing their power and getting it back is way too common in most, if not all, sci-fi plots. Yeah, I guess so. Depends though, really. Depends on how do they get their power back. Because let's for instance say that's why I'm gonna tell you to read the story, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Well, watch the story. Because Liu Bei, first of all, he built his own power, he built an army, right? Uh, and then because of his honor system, he let Lu Bu, who was running for his life, he let Lu Bu stay in his city, right? He's like, hey, you can stay here, right? We can use you, right? We can use you to fight off Chow Chow, right? And then Chow Chow did a plot to basically, you know, basically tempt Lu Bu to think that Lu Bu was being betrayed by Liu Bei, right? Even though Liu Bei wasn't betraying him, because Liu Bei is Liu Bei, right? Liu Bei doesn't betray anyone. But Lu Bu, being the hard-headed person that he is, he falls for it and kicks out Liu Bei out of his own freaking city. So Liu Bei's basically kicked out. He loses an entire military. Chow Chow, because Chow Chow likes Liu Bei, right? Because Chow Chow feels like Liu Bei without an army is basically, you know, worthless. He doesn't execute Liu Bei. He takes him in as more of a political prisoner. So he's not really a prisoner, but he can't leave, right? Right? And Liu Bei is now a part of Chow Chow's faction, even though he was his enemy for so many years, right? And he's under Chow Chow. And eventually he sneaks away and starts his own thing, right? Way later on in the story. But the whole point is that's an interesting way of dealing with somebody whose fall, right? His fall uh is not that bad, right? Like he fell, but it didn't really like destroy him. It didn't destroy him because Chow Chow basically underestimated him. He felt like he can control him at that point, and he thought that Liu Bei was a better asset, right, in his current state than than if he was just dead, right? So that was the that character's what's it called? So that's a they have way more interesting falls from grace and then comebacks, but not many people came back in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. When you lost, you lost. Like most of them, when they lost bad, and it was a sudden and instant loss. Like they didn't lose, like. So in other words, they ain't lose over a long period of time. They were winning a lot, and then they freaking lost, and they were wiped off the face of the earth, never to be seen again. Does happen. Is Fen Yang African name? Just a question. Yep, sure is. Let me look it up for you. It's actually a Kushite name. Fen Yang. Yeah, all the names are actually Nubian names. So let me see if I can uh, pull them up. Let me see if I can find it. I hope I can find it. Let's see. So in other words, like names like Sorkati, right? Sorkati, right, means writer. So that right, that he's basically the leader of the cults, right? So Sorkati is writer, and let me see. Let's see. I got them all. I just gotta figure out where I got them from because I do have a list. They're cool, man. I like my names. All my names come from real shit. Right? It's like you gotta have real names, man. You can't be out here tripping. You gotta have real names out there, man. Well, I don't got my list with me right now. I'll pull it up a little bit later so I can give you all the names of their name characters. But every character is named for a reason. They all have like a real reason, like for their name. You know, are these formatting requirements for the submission? Yeah, we're gonna give it to you by the end of the week. Who's neutral good? That was Misaka. No, Masika. Masika, my bad. I keep messing up her name. Masika. Masika is neutral good. Well, not neutral good. She's lawful good. Sorry. Nobody's neutral good. Nobody's neutral good in this story, right? It's very hard to find neutral good people in general, right? Neutral good people are kind of like weird. Like they're not human, right? Neutral neutral good people. I mean, not neutral good. My bad. Neutral. So neutral good. Yeah, I don't see many people who are just neutral good. Uh, it's very hard to be neutral in anything, right? Or true, right? True good, true evil, right? That it's very hard to find a character who's ever like that in general, right? Because it's just really hard to be a person like that. True good. You know, what is that? What is true good? True good means you might kill yourself. Oh, then just because good, just because that situation, says kill yourself, right? Chaotic good, they want to do good by any means necessary if it means breaking the rules, right? Lawful good means they follow the rules in place in order to do good things, right? Or do as much good as they can within the rules, right? But true good, right? If they break too many rules, they're chaotic, right? If they don't follow, he said if they follow the rules, they're lawful. So, how do you make a character who doesn't follow rules and breaks rules and like it's just a weird kind of person that doesn't really exist, right? Either people usually lean one way or the other, right? It's very hard to find somebody who's in the middle. Let's see. Are we allowed to make sub characters to advance the main character story arc, like siblings, prisoners, other nations? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, that is something that I would prefer from the winners. So the winners expanding on the characters and throwing stories or sub stories in there that gives them more character, that gives them more, right? Gives them more energy, more things to worry about, right? Makes this story more in a bubble, right? The idea is this, right? Every character at the beginning is in a bubble. They're in a bubble. They're not always in conflict with each other, right? So how does the story go if they're not in direct conflict with somebody, some other warlord, right? How does the story go? What are the things, the day to day operations? What are they currently worrying about? Whose character is trying to gain power in their military, right? Who's their lead commander? What's his like? What's his attitude like? Or her attitude like? Right? These are great things that I see from really good creators. So if you could do something like that, that's pretty dope. Yeah, you definitely should. You definitely should research a lot, but don't think too hard about it because at the end of the day, you know, I think there's not that many tactics in ancient times. Like this is like 3500 BC. So this is way back, right? And the only reason why we're using bronze at all, even though bronze didn't even exist back then, is because it's cool. All right. That's why we're using bronze. But it's not the bronze age, all right? It's not the bronze age. We're just using it because it's cool. All right. So we're breaking some rules there, but the hell with them. Right. We just want to make a cool story. Yeah, we won't be giving out more information than what we just provided. That's you guys to decide on how you want to go about it. So you guys can create a lot. You can create a lot. And I'm gonna see who I like to get those characters, right? So you gotta really be thinking of what kind of like things you're gonna make in there in order to make that character freaking cool. You know? Here's a question that's actually a question that they can answer themselves. So is Sorkati combat experience even though he is an old priest? I don't know. That's something you should write. Maybe he is. Maybe he's a veteran of war. Maybe he had a secret identity. Maybe he changed his whole life around and hid the fact that he used to be a warlord. He faked his death and then came back. Who knows? Who knows? Right? But if you can make it work, if you can make it work and then and then add that to how he reacts, like his actions. You're like, why is he so organized in military situations, even though he's a priest? Maybe because he's really a warlord, but he left that life behind, but he didn't leave his mind behind. He still knows how to run shit. Never know, right? So it's a good question, one that you should run with if you want to do that. If you want to do that, run with it and see what happens. I might be like, I like that version of Sorkati the best. You got to understand, there's a couple of people who are going to help me with judging these, but I'm going to be looking for who gave me the most compelling version of a character. That's going to be people who are going to win the first round, all right, and get to the second round. The people who can give me the most compelling and interesting versions of characters, right? And that might be doubling down on their attributes. It might be adding characters in there who complement the story in ways that I wouldn't have thought of, but really makes for an interesting story. Where I'm like, that's going to be a cool ass story to read, no matter what. Even if the other warlords didn't exist, that's going to be an interesting story, right? So do what you do. Yes, most of the characters have no powers at all. Like none. There's gonna be a couple of monsters that will be in there, like ancients and stuff, but that's very few and far between. It's there just to shake things up and remind your ass that you're in the Black Sands universe, right? That's the reason why you're gonna see some like ancients, but you ain't gonna see ancients just because randomly or powers. You're gonna see that very rarely, and it's gonna happen just to remind you that you are in the Black Sands universe. There are no comics. This is all novels. So if you're late to this is a novel series. So you don't want new characters. I don't want new main characters. All right. There can be sub characters. There can be characters who are part of people's militaries, stuff like that. But no new main characters. Like I don't want, another kingdom popping up or something like that. That's just that makes the story like too volatile, right? Any characters that you create should basically be characters who are interacting with your warlord only, right? So when we make characters in our world, when I make characters in the world, I'm making characters that interact with every other character. So in other words, Sorkati will interact with all four warlords, right? And vice versa. They're all going to interact with each other. Their actions dictate the actions of other people. But the characters that you create, right? All those characters should mostly only interact with the warlord. You understand? So they should only affect their warlord and nobody else's warlords. Like you shouldn't make a character, a minor character that somehow affects some other person's warlord, right? Unless that character is a military unit who's specifically assigned to disrupt, right? So they're a disruptor, right? And if they're a disruptor, right, then we'll have some pretty cool, interesting dynamics on how the other warlord deals with these disruptions, right? But for the most part, every character you make needs to be internal and in a bubble for that particular warlord. if you are lucky enough to be chosen as a winner, yeah. So every single chapter the people write are going to be $500. So at first it's just straight of a flat fee, right? You're going to write a lot of chapters and you get $500 every chapter. A chapter is about 10,000 words. So every 10,000 words or 30 pages in novel format, right? That's 10,000 words. Is going to be $500. And if you're lucky, right? If we are successful in this project, we'll also expand it. So we'll expand it to let's see, we'll expand it to actually become like straight up printed press. And people who did really well in this, if I felt like you excelled, right, you were much more liked than others when it comes to the readers, you're gonna get like traditional publishing deals and be able to write more novels in the Black Sands world and get regular royalties instead of just a flat fee. So it really depends, right? But definitely paid up front. So once you submit a chapter, $500. All the all the same all the characters in the same basic region. Yep, they're all in Kush, Kingdom of Kush. Everybody's in there. Even if they, even if they won't, even if they won't have powers, can we still have sorcerers in there for side characters? Because I'm aware, nope, there won't be. The only people who even deal with any kind of supernatural stuff are the Magi, and the only reason why they're dealing with it is because they would destroy them all. All right, so no. Are there any animals in relationships to the warlords? I don't know. Adam, if you feel like there's a good there's animals that are related in some kind of way, make it happen. Yeah, there's short stories, 30-page short stories. That's the final. That's for the winners. The winners will be writing 30-page short stories. These are 10,000 words long, and they're $500 each. They're all little short stories. Everybody's writing them, and sometimes they will intermingle. Sometimes they will connect. Sometimes they will, follow the same storyline, right? But for the most part, it's 5 different warlords writing stories in the same time period, going in a timeline that's moving forward together. All right, guys. So that's it. That's all the questions for today. Thank you guys so much. It's going to be an amazing competition. I'm excited. We haven't done novels ever. So this is going to be the first time we're ever doing novels. And I couldn't be more excited. I think this is going to be one of the most incredible experiences for not just me, but for you guys ever. Because you're going to be joining basically a brand that's national. We got Kevin Hart, we got Mark Cuban. We've been on TV multiple times. We're constantly on TV. Just today, we were on TV, right? So, this is a national brand, and you're going to be able to actually be an official writer in the Black Sands universe. You know how crazy that is? You know how coveted that is? So, I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited too. And, let's kick some butt. See you later. Don't forget, sign up for Patreon. If you haven't signed up for Patreon yet, patreon.com/Black Sands. Sign up because you are going to have to put your credentials in when you submit. All right. I ain't looking at nobody's submission who don't got their credentials in there. So make sure to sign up. See you later.